Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.
And good Yontif. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Temple Emeth and to our Kol Nidrei service. I welcome you here to the Rabbi Louis J. Siegel Sanctuary in Teaneck, New Jersey. If you're joining us on live stream, I wish Shana Tova to you. The Machzor, the High Holy Day prayer book that we will use this evening, is Mishkan HaNefesh, the silver volume for Yom Kippur. If you have a copy of the Machzor nearby, now is the time to bring it to your screen or to your device so that you can follow along with each and every song, prayer, and page number of our service this evening. I also encourage you to post something in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. It can be your name, your location, or simply Shana Tova. If you do this, others will know that you are watching with them, and we will form bonds of virtual community in this way. For those here in the sanctuary, you should have received a copy of Mishkan HaNefesh as you came in the room. If not, you still have a moment right now to get one from the hallway. I ask everyone to please check your cell phone right now to ensure that it is at least turned to silent and preferably turned off. I guess it's too late to ask you to leave it at home. But during this sacred evening, you don't want to be the one whose phone disturbs the sacred words and music of our service. There are times during the service, many times in fact, when we ask you to stand. Sometimes we say, please rise if you are able, and other times we simply say, please rise. No matter what exactly the instruction, you should rise only if you are comfortable doing so. Coming to services is sometimes a spiritual challenge, and sometimes even a physical challenge, but it should never be a burden that affects your health. And that is especially true tomorrow when some of you will be fasting. Tonight, those sitting on the bima with me include Cantor Tillam, our accompanist Tom Estachio, and Rabbi Rebecca Einstein-Shore, whom many of you met on Rosh Hashanah. We are also blessed to again have our Kol Emeth choir at this service. And we have all of you, a congregation ready to enter its holiest day of the year. Kol Nidrei is, to my knowledge, the only service on the Jewish calendar named for a song. The song's lyrics have power. It is about the power of words, and how sometimes we wish we could undo the words we shouldn't have said. But for many of us, the power of the song is in its melody. It is, after all, a melody we hear just once a year. It is a melody that introduces our holiest day of the year. And it is a melody which is given extra significance because we take all the Torah scrolls from the Ark and have them held before us. I would like us to think of Kol Nidrei not just as a song, but as one of several punctuation marks as we journey from this moment to Ne'ilah tomorrow night. Kol Nidrei is about the power of words. Unatan Tokef is about choosing tshuva and having a deadline by which to do so. Avinu Malkeinu is about understanding our complex and multifaceted relationship with God. Shema Kolenu is pleading for compassion when we cry out. And Ashamnu is about the redemptive power of confession. The day ends tomorrow evening with the blast of the shofar, the sound that calls us to attention and affirms the covenant. So now we prepare for the first of these sounds to fill the sanctuary and penetrate our souls. Our service for Kol Nidrei begins with the lighting of the Yom Kippur candles found in your Machzor on page 9.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom HaKippurim. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on Yom Kippur. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehekiyanu, V'kiyimanu, V'higiyanu, Lazman Hazeh. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life upholding the life within us and bringing us to this time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom hakippurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
We turn at this time to page 15. Kol Nidrei, a chant that begins in a whisper and rises to a cry. On this night of promises remembered, each soul in solitude communes with the soul of the universe. God, from this day of atonement to the next, may we reach it in peace. All Israel makes these vows, to turn from wrong, dishonesty, and greed, to walk in the path of justice and right. Yet we know our weakness, how prone we are to fail. Help us to keep our word. Help us to act with humility and integrity. We seek pardon and forgiveness. We seek your radiance and light. At this time, I invite the past presidents of the congregation to come to the bima to hold the Torahs or to form an honor guard. We turn to page 16 in the Machzor. Please rise. Okay, Gary and Emma.
Oizaru ala tzadi.
Take a step up and open the doors.
Ulishrei lev simcha.
With one voice, assembled sages past and present declare, all may pray as one on this night of repentance. Let none be excluded from our community of prayer. With one voice, God and congregation proclaim, all may pray as one on this day of return. Let all find a place in this sacred assembly. All shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel and the stranger who lives in their midst, for all have gone astray in error. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now, in keeping with your boundless love. We remain standing at this time. We turn to page 22 and our service continues with Baruch Hu.
We continue on page 26. Love beyond all space and time, your love enfolds your people, Yisrael. We receive it in your teaching, your gift of Torah, sacred obligations, discipline, and law. So let us speak these teachings when we lie down and rise up and find joy forever in your Torah and mitzvot. They are the very essence of our life, ours to ponder and study all our days. May we never lose or be unworthy of your love. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Blessed, the one who loves your people, Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated and turn to page 33. Throughout the year, our actions condemn us. Throughout the year, our deeds are open to blame. But on this day, we rise above our human failings. Fasting, praying, wrapped in white talitot, we stand like angels reaching out for the divine. On this one day, We catch a glimpse of what we could be. We celebrate the better angels of our nature. We continue on page 38. Truth and faith. These are fundamental to our existence. God alone is their source, and we are Israel, a people of God. Our sovereign saves us from tyranny, redeems us from its violence through countless wonders, from its brutality through great feats beyond measure. Together, we are Israel, a people of God, the giver of life, the maker of miracles for us against Pharaoh, of signs and portents in the land of Egypt, the one who brought our people Israel from its midst to enduring. Witnesses to this heroic might, the people thanked and praised God by name, freely accepting the reign of heaven. Then Moses and Miriam and all Israel sang to you this song of utter joy. We continue on page 45. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תתעוררו.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ויעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחיי כל וימי חן ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלל בזמן קריב ימרו. אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך. ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לילה ולילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה
The Amidah begins on page 46. Please rise.
Adonai sevatai tiftahu v'yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanokra, Shema B'Yahweh. Zochreinu l'chaim, melech havetz b'chaim.
Continue at the top of page 53. You are holy, your name is holy. Seekers of holiness praise you day by day. Selah. Please be seated. And turn in your machzor to page 71, where we will read responsively. On this night of atonement, grant us, God, a sense of your presence as we call upon your name.
Speak your hopeful message to each yearning heart, and answer the worthy petitions of each searching soul.
Purify and strengthen our noble strivings, and cleanse us of all our unworthy desires.
Join us together in fellowship and in love, and grant us the joy which comes from enriching other lives.
Help us to be loyal to the heritage we share. Draw us near to Torah in wisdom and in faith.
Strengthen our devotion to our people everywhere. Keep alive our faith in righteousness and truth.
Bless us with hopes to uplift our daily lives and keep steadfast our courage and our resolve at all times.
On this night of atonement, help us, God, to be worthy of your presence as we call upon your name.
We turn to page 78. Peace, profound and lasting, all-embracing. Peace. Let this be your gift to Israel, your people. In your goodness, author of peace, bless us and all people, every season, every hour, with the peace that is yours to give. Let us and the whole family of Israel be remembered and inscribed in the book of life. May it be a life of goodness, blessing, and prosperity. May it be a life of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh ha-shalom. You are the Blessed One, the Eternal One, source of shalom. We take the next few moments for our own thoughts and silent meditation. Today is different. Of course, technically speaking, every day is different from the preceding one. But today, these 10 days are intentionally different. The foods we eat or don't eat, the clothes we wear, the melodies we hear, the words we say. It isn't that there's anything wrong with the food, clothes, melodies, and words of our everyday lives, but these 10 days are meant to be different, to be special, elevated, sacred. We call these 10 days the Yamim Noraim, and we often render that as the days of repentance. While repentance is a primary theme of this season, the literal translation of Yamim Noraim is days of awe. Though I now live in Pennsylvania, I hail from Southern California, where the colloquial use of the word awesome is used so often and in so many ways that it's become meaningless. How are you today? Awesome. We can seat you right away. Awesome. A semi overturned and there's a SIG alert on the 405. Awesome. But this word, this old English word that dates back to the 16th century, means something quite different. It means fear-inspiring awe. That is what these days are about. Fear-inspiring awe. We don't often think this way. It feels alien or antiquated. Or maybe, if we stop and think too long, too terrifying. Our liturgy over these 10 days captures the notion of a fear-inspiring God. One who not only watches our every move, but records it and judges it. And as the prayers continue, will determine our fate in the upcoming year. That, to me, is terrifying. In just a moment, Cantor Tillam will begin the Vidui section with the acrostic known as a Shamnu. It introduces pages and pages of our named failures, transgressions, and sins. We could sit passively, listen to the shimmering, powerful melody, and let the words wash over us. A legitimate way to experience this section, by the way, as the cantor's voice can certainly stir our very souls and bring us to an elevated plane. But what if, as it's being chanted, we turn to the words either in English or Hebrew and confront them? What does it mean to stand in judgment? What have I done that I don't want judged? What will I do to right the wrongs of the past and make different choices in my present, knowing that I will be here, God willing, once again in a year, and confronting these very words, confronting my soul? And how will I change to live in such a way that when I am called before God, I will be judged favorably? Yamim Noraim. That is what these days are meant to be. Fear-inspiring awe, an awesomeness that inspires us to do better and to be better.
Our service continues on page 82. We read together in English, "Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong." We read together, "Of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely. We are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, we slander. We devise evil, we lie, we ridicule, we disobey. We abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes. We are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray." Our turning away from your mitzvot and laws of goodness is a hollow pursuit. You are just concerning all that happens in our lives. Your way is the way of truth, while ours leads to error. What can we say to you whose existence is beyond time and space? What words of ours can reach your realm beyond the clouds, beyond heaven itself? Every hidden mystery, every revelation, surely you know them all. You know the secrets of the universe and the secrets of the human heart. You know and understand us, for you examine our inner lives. Nothing is concealed from you, nothing hidden from your sight. Eternal One, our God and God of our ancestors, we pray that this be your will. Forgive all our wrongs. Pardon us for every act of injustice. Help us atone for all our moral failures. We turn now to page 89. We read responsively for failures of integrity. We wrong you when we wrong ourselves. For our failures of integrity, Adonai, we seek forgiveness.
For passing judgment without knowledge of the facts, and for distorting facts to suit our purposes.
For succumbing in silence to social pressure and for acquiescing in beliefs we find offensive.
For using others' bad behavior to excuse our own, and for blaming others for our mistakes and poor decisions.
For pretending to emotions we do not feel and for appearing to be other than what we are.
For condemning in our children the faults we tolerate in ourselves, and for tolerating in ourselves the faults we condemn in our parents.
Failures of justice. We dishonor you when we dishonor our society. For our failures of justice, Adonai, we seek forgiveness.
For being indifferent to deprivation and hunger, while accepting a culture of self-indulgence and greed.
For abuse of power in boardrooms, courtrooms, and classrooms, and for accepting the neglect of children and elders, the ill and the weak.
For permitting social inequalities to prevail, and for lacking the vision to transcend our selfishness.
For glorifying violence and turning hastily to war, and for allowing history to repeat itself.
For behaviors that risk the future of our planet, and for wreaking havoc on our only true inheritance, God's creation.
We continue on page 91. Failures of love. We sin against you when we hurt one another. For our failures of love, Adonai, we seek forgiveness.
For exploiting another for our own pleasure, and for the wounds we cause through betrayal and deception.
For withholding affection from those we claim to love, and for using love to control our spouses and partners, our children and parents.
For abandoning friends and siblings whose love has sustained us, and for neglecting those who love us when they need us most.
For harboring in our relationships mistrust, boredom, and disloyalty, and for rejecting our partner's efforts at repair and renewal.
For possessiveness, jealousy, and avarice, and for lashing out in anger at those who are closest to us.
Who among us is blameless? Who shall say, I have not erred, I have not wronged or sinned? We abuse, we brutalize, we covet, we deceive, we enslave, we feud, we gossip, we humiliate, we injure, we judge unfairly, we kill, we lie, we manipulate, we neglect, we ostracize, we plagiarize, we quarrel, we rage, we shame, we turn away, we undermine, we vilify, we waste, we exploit the earth, we yearn too much for yesterday and too easily forget Zion. Our sins are an alphabet of woe. Help us, Holy One, to follow your ways of integrity, justice, and love. Teach us to seek forgiveness with humility and an open heart. We take a few moments at this time for silent confession. Readings for this time are found on pages 92 to 95. At the conclusion of this period of silence, Cantor Tillam will sing Shema Kolenu, which is found on page 98. We turn at this time to page 100. We read responsively, God of forgiveness, we come before you in need of compassion. With one voice, they had promised we will do and obey, and yet stiff-necked they broke their word, adoring an idol of gold.
How wondrous your compassion in the face of their rebellion, your forgiveness in the moment of human weakness and doubt.
We too have broken promises to you. We too worship the work of our own hands. We too make of gold a god, and we too forsake your word. Together, Adonai, Adonai, God compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the 1000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon. We turn now to page 104. We read responsively in the middle of the page, Our God and God of our fathers, God of our mothers, do not abandon us, leaving us in shame. Do not dissolve the covenant you have made with us.
Rather draw us near to your teaching. Show us your ways and teach us how to live. Let us be open to your love, ready to revere your very being. Cut away the hardness of our hearts, so that we may turn to you with all our heart's devotion, truly repentant.
For the sake of your great name, pardon our failures, forgive our moral weakness, as in the holy words of your psalmist, Adonai, as befits your name, forgive my sin, no matter how great. We turn now to page 111 in the Machzor. We read together in English. Answer us, you who answered our mother Sarah in her old age, you who answered our father Abraham on Mount Moriah, you who answered their son Isaac when bound upon the altar, you who answered Rebekah when she cried, "Why do I exist?" You who answered Jacob at Bethel, "Israel shall be your name." You who answered Leah in her sadness, you who answered Rachel in her pain, you who answered Joseph in the prison house, you who answered the midwives Shiphrah and Puah at the birthing stones, you who answered Yocheved's courage on the bank of the Nile, you who answered our fathers and our mothers at the Sea of Reeds, you who answered Moses at Sinai, I bore you on eagle's wings, you who answered the daughters of Zelophehad, who stood up for their rights before Moses and God, you who answered Elijah with a still small voice in the wilderness, you who answered the righteous ones before us, men and women of integrity and compassion, answer us. We turn now to page 114 for Avinu Malkeinu. Please rise if you are able as we open the ark. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu Ve'al Olaleinu V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever V'cherev V'ra'av Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kaleh Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, Malei Yadenu Mibirchotecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, Harem Keren Mishichecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, Na'al Teshivenu Rekam Milfanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, Kabel Brachamim Uvratzon et Tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu Lema'an Shmecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Lema'ancha Ve'im Lo Lema'anenu. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, Petach Sha'arei Shamayim Litfilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu Chus Farachem Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu Va'anenu, Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Aseh Imanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love. may be seated. Shana Tova. I begin this evening with an overview of labor relations and labor regulations in the 5 books of the Torah. In the book of Genesis, we read about Jacob's relationship with his uncle Laban. He wants to marry Laban's daughter Rachel and agrees to work for Laban for 7 years for the right to do so. When the 7 years are up, Laban surreptitiously switches the bride, and Jacob unwittingly marries Leah instead of Rachel. He eventually marries Rachel too, in exchange for 7 additional years of labor. After the bait and switch, the relationship is never the same between employer and employee. Distrust lingers until Jacob eventually decides he must leave without even saying goodbye. Laban receives an extra 7 years of labor and maintains the local custom of marrying off the elder daughter first. But he ultimately loses access to his daughters and grandchildren, and because of Jacob's skill in breeding animals, he probably loses some flocks too. In the book of Exodus, we read about an Egyptian tyrant who steals the labor of hundreds of thousands of foreigners by enslaving them and making them work even harder when they protest. Their work at first is not even necessary. He enslaves them for political reasons, wanting to be sure they do not take up arms with the nation's enemies. Of course, this injustice ends poorly for Egypt. Their land is ravaged by plagues, and their army is washed away in the waters of the Red Sea. The exploitation and persecution of the Israelites leaves Egypt ultimately decimated. In the book of Leviticus, we read the Holiness Code, chapter 19. It begins with, "You shall be holy, for I, the eternal your God, am holy." The entire chapter is a list of ways for us to increase holiness in the world. Interestingly, though the Israelites are meant to emulate God, most of the commandments on that list are Ben Adam L'Chavero, guiding the relationships between human beings. Chapter 19, verse 13 reads, "You shall not oppress your fellow Israelite. You shall not commit robbery. The wages of a laborer shall not remain with you until morning." They are 3 ideas, but they comprise a single biblical verse. The great commentator Rashi says that the oppression prohibited here is the withholding of wages. To do so, then, is the violation of 2 commandments, and within the spirit of the chapter, a diminishment of God's holiness on earth. In the book of Numbers, we read the responsibilities for the men of the Levite tribe. They serve fully in their capacities, carrying the sacred objects from age 30 to 50. And then in chapter 8, verse 25, they get an automatic retirement. But Rashi points out that it is not a full retirement. The Levites, who are assigned their tasks by God, do not have to fully relinquish their responsibilities. Rather, they must give up the difficult ones, like carrying, but they can maintain the easier and more social ones of singing and watching the gate of the temple. The rule is both compassionate and wise. The Levites should continue to serve in the ways they can do so safely, but it would be a perilous situation, both physically and spiritually, if someone dropped part of the tabernacle. So best to let a younger man handle that physically demanding task. In the book of Deuteronomy, we have an echo of what we read in Leviticus, but this time we get more detail. In chapter 24, verses 14 and 15, it reads, "You shall not abuse a needy and destitute laborer, whether a fellow countryman or a stranger in one of the communities of your land. You must pay him his wages on the same day before the sun sets, for he is needy and urgently depends on it. Else he will cry to the Eternal against you, and you will incur guilt." The implication of the text and the later commentary both indicate that we are talking about a day laborer. Then, as now, day laborers were quite poor and were the most vulnerable to exploitation. Unlike Leviticus, Deuteronomy does not speak the language of holiness. Rather, it speaks the language of accountability. An exploited laborer seems to have a direct connection to God to report an unethical employer, almost like HR. And God will heed such a complaint. These texts about the fair treatment of laborers are diverse. Some are narratives and some are laws, but they all understand that employers inherently have more power than laborers. This power can be used to withhold wages or worse, and this is bad not just for the shortchanged worker, but for the employer, the society, and even for God's reputation. It's true that at the time of the Torah, there were no corporations as we understand them today, nor were there any labor unions. But there was definitely the danger that workers could be exploited, and the Torah was adamantly opposed to this. Our tradition promotes the dignity of work, and in doing so impresses upon us all to uphold the dignity of workers. Rabbi Jill Jacobs, in a chapter of The Sacred Exchange, Creating a Jewish Money Ethic, published by our movement 4 years ago, makes the case that employment should be an arrangement that is based in partnership and mutual respect. Just as God worked for 6 days in the story of creation, we do the same thing as we prepare for Shabbat. Rabbi Jacobs quotes an early commentary on Pirkei Avot, known as Avot de Rabbi Natan, which says, "A person should love work and not hate work. Just as the Torah was given through the covenant, so too was work given through the covenant. As it says, 'For 6 days shall you work, and the seventh day shall be a Sabbath of the eternal your God.'" While the Torah implies that work is sacred, Rabbi Chaim David Halevi, the former Sephardic chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, says it more explicitly. He writes, "In the Jewish worldview, work is sacred. It is building and creating and is a partnership with God in the work of creation." If the work is sacred, Rabbi Jacobs asserts, then the workplace must be treated as a holy place in which everyone strives to make divinity manifest. We are used to calling our sanctuary a mikdash, a sacred space. After all, it is where we keep our holiest texts and offer our prayers to the one God. You may have heard about the Jewish home being a mikdash me'at, a miniature sanctuary where God is exalted through the celebration of holidays and the education of children. These texts argue that we should also consider the workplace a mikdash me'at, a place where the dignity of each person is affirmed and the commandments regarding honesty and worker protection are upheld. This has been on my mind because of the headline-grabbing strikes that are affecting Hollywood entertainment companies and American car manufacturers. The factors behind these labor actions are complex, but I think we can still look at them through a Jewish lens. I'm not an economist, but it seems to me like there are two key similarities between the Hollywood strikes and the auto workers' strike. One is as old as labor unions themselves. The workers feel they deserve more of the profits that come from selling their product. Whether it's higher wages, better benefits, or a more generous pension plan, there is part of virtually every strike that is about dollars and cents. The Torah's sympathies are for the workers. They depend on their wages to feed their families, while there is little chance that the family of a corporate executive will go hungry. The second similarity between Hollywood and the auto workers is that both are terrified they will lose their jobs to technology. Car factories are becoming more and more automated. As car companies are investing billions to build factories that assemble electric cars, they are doing so in a way that far fewer human beings will be needed to staff the assembly line. This is nothing new. For as long as there have been factories, there has been an effort to reduce the number of people needed to run them. We should applaud efficiency, but we should have grave concerns when it means that the partnership of the workplace is undermined and the dignity of work becomes inaccessible to many. In Hollywood, the concern about technology is different. Writers are worried that artificial intelligence will replace them, that technologies like ChatGPT will render them wholly unnecessary. Actors are worried that advanced computer graphics programs can put their face on a character without their presence and without their consent. This is largely unprecedented. For the first time in history, creative work like writing or acting can realistically be outsourced to machines. What What will that mean for the people whose creative talents are also their livelihood? I get why they're scared. These strikes are about creating protections now against threats that have just begun to appear. No one knows if they will materialize as expected, or even for that matter, if the existence of the technology will create jobs we haven't yet imagined. But we all, to some extent, fear changes that are beyond our control, and we should be able to appreciate the fear of not being able to pay the rent or put food on the table. Keeping people out of poverty is a fundamental Jewish value. In recent decades, we've become familiar with the term corporate responsibility. It is a response to the traditional attitude that a corporation's only responsibility was to make money for its shareholders. Corporate responsibility means that the great power that corporations hold must be wielded not simply in pursuit of profits, but also to protect the environment, to eliminate discrimination, and to create a safe workplace. In this way, corporate responsibility is consistent with the values of the Torah by placing the greater expectation on the party with more power. We know that there is dignity in work, and that value can be learned starting at a young age. That is why we assign our children chores around the house, and why they work in family businesses and have jobs like babysitting. But not all work is intended for young people. In the Torah, one had to be 20 years old to serve in the army. A Levite had to be 30 years old to carry the sacred objects of the sanctuary. Both the Torah and common sense tell us that there are some jobs that are just too dangerous for children. The New York Times Magazine published an expose this week about the use of unaccompanied migrant child labor in chicken processing plants in rural Virginia. It cites layer upon layer of dysfunction and greed, beginning in these children's home countries in Central and South America. First, there is the poverty, desperation, and violence that prompts the children's parents to send them away in the first place. They make it across the border, taking advantage of a loophole for unaccompanied minors, but only by incurring thousands of dollars in debt. Then they often must pay rent to the relatives who take them in. Their only solution by that point is to get a job. And in the corner of Virginia, which is the focus of the article, there are always two places hiring: the chicken processing plants at either end of town. 13-year-olds are regularly hired there to do the overnight cleaning shift, using chemicals that burn their lungs and cause welts on their skin if there is any gap or tear in their protective clothing. They get these jobs by presenting fake papers, which cost hundreds to obtain, another aspect of the dysfunction. They don't think they have a choice. They need to pay off their debts, and the money they can make in a single 6-hour shift is more than they could make in a month back home. Federal law bans minors from cleaning slaughterhouses because of the risk of injury, but about a third of the overnight cleaning crew at one of these plants were minors. Needless to say, unaccompanied immigrant children working with fake papers do not have a union. It is the kind of system everyone should be opposed to, and many people are. The parents don't want their children to be injured. The teachers at school want them to learn. The plant management wants to avoid the legal exposure that comes with violating federal law. And yet the system endures, driven by debt and desperation, supported by a code of silence in workplaces all over the country. It is a degradation of a place that should value dignity. It is shocking that the situation should exist, and shameful that more is not being done to dismantle it. Not everyone is opposed to the expansion of child labor. This year, 3 states amended their laws to weaken the parental consent provisions for teenage workers. They are Arkansas, Iowa, and New Jersey. New Jersey also lengthened the maximum summer work week for teenage minors and lengthened the period they may have to work without getting a break. Yes, our economy needs workers, but allowing 14 and 15-year-olds to work up to 6 hours a day during the school year, as Iowa does, is not the way to achieve it. Allowing 16-year-olds to work a 50-hour work week in the summer, as we do now in New Jersey, is not the way to achieve it. our country made great progress in the New Deal era to protect children from exploitive labor practices. It made a statement that children in America deserve a childhood and an education. We cannot be silent as the country moves backwards. On Yom Kippur afternoon, we have a section of our prayers called Avodah. The word Avodah means service, as in the service the high priest performed in the temple on this day. The word also means work or labor, because both represent something we give of ourselves to create meaning in our lives. Both enhance our dignity and deepen our sacred bond with God and each other. In our Siddur, the prayer for Avodah and the prayer for Hoda'ah, thanksgiving, come one after the other. Mishkan HaNefesh for Rosh Hashanah offers a reading that combines these two themes. Each of the occupations in this reading was held by at least one of the Talmudic rabbis. If you listen closely, you will hear professions, skilled artisans, and manual work. To our sages who toiled, to the one who chopped wood, to the one who raised cattle, to the storekeeper, the cobbler, and the one who sold salt, to the one who brewed beer, and the one who filled casks of wine, to the tailor, to the teacher, to the dealer in cotton, to the one who scrubbed clothing, to the keeper of vines, to the merchant of silk, to the one who plowed fields, to the builder of houses, to the doctors and scribes, to the blacksmith, to the tanner, to the digger of graves. Let us give thanks for a tradition that sanctifies work. Let us honor those who toil and sustain the world in noble and humble ways. We acknowledge those whose labor goes unnoticed. We praise the strength of their hands and the dedication of their hearts. Let us strive to live in a country whose economy does not rely on the labor of vulnerable children, where child labor laws are strong and enforced. Let us understand that at the heart of every labor dispute is an effort at fairness and security. And may we all see our workplaces as miktashei ma'at, sanctuaries of justice, where the godliness in every person is affirmed. Gemar Chatima Tova and Shana Tova.
Our service continues on page 116 with Aleinu. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateichu l'aliot sereshit, shelo asani v'goyei haratzot, v'lo galanu mishpat ha'adama, shelo sam Elokeinu barech, v'gor aleinu, v'kol ha'amanah, v'anachnu korihim, u'mishtabim u'modim, l'ifnei Melech ma'arei ha'goyim, hakadosh baruch hu.
Please be seated and turn to page 119. Together, may we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with joy, of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. This is the praise of the living, praise for the gift of life, praise for loved ones and friends, for listening hearts, laughter, and forgiveness. Praise for their searching and striving, for perseverance and vision, minds that aspired to know and understand. Praise for their courage and faith, for souls that brought light to dark corners, for hands that were gentle and strong. Praise for those who walked before us in valleys of darkest shadow, who endured their grief and brought forth new life. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Praise for the one who is always with us, the source of growth, the promise of goodness. Praise for the gift of life and memory. Praise for the blessing of hope. We turn to page 122 and rise for Kaddish Yatom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutech memlich malchutech, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'elah u'le'elah mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei Shalom Rabbah min Shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. Please be seated.
It is my pleasure to call upon Gary Richards, an officer of the congregation, to offer Yontif greetings and announcements.
Good Yontif. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gary Richards. I'm an officer of the temple serving as a treasurer. On Rosh Hashanah, Mike Goldberg mentioned he has 654 days to go in his term, but who's counting? Thankfully, there are term limits in the Constitution. I'm in my 6th year, so I get to retire when Mike's term is up. So I am indeed counting, and it's 645 days. And now I'd like to share with you some announcements. If you haven't already, please take a bag as you leave the sanctuary for our annual High Holiday Food Drive. Please bring it back tomorrow morning, filled with wholesome, non-perishable food, and please place it on the stage in the social hall. For everyone's safety and security, please show your ticket to the ushers as you enter the building for tomorrow's service. To help strengthen our bonds of community, we ask you to wear your ticket as your name badge during the service. Name badge holders are available from the ushers. Thank you for the volunteers in the live stream control booth this evening. Doug Falk and Andrew Sherwood are at the controls. And one last reminder, as you leave the sanctuary, please take your prayer book and return it to an usher or to the table in the lobby. Whether you're here in person or watching on live stream, may you have an easy and meaningful fast, a sweet year, and Shana Tova.
I'd like to take a moment at this time to really thank our amazing, incredible choir. They just sounded so beautiful during Rosh Hashanah and this evening. And the gift that they give to all of us is really invaluable. They're here before we even start thinking about the holidays, sometime in the summer. And they're here every single week, even after many of them have been at work all day, have been dealing with their own families. They're here to give us the gift of music, to uplift us and help beautify our services. And at the forefront of all of that and all that each of them does is Carol Shansky. She gives of her time, her talent, and sometimes when she needs to be or would rather be somewhere else, she's here, putting in all of that time. And Carol, we really can't thank you enough, all of us here during the holidays. Thank you so much. And as always and every week, we get the blessing of hearing the incredible talent of Tom Mustachio. We're so lucky here at Temple Emeth. Go listen to some other accompanists. Come back here and say, wow, am I lucky? Because Tom is really something. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you very, very much.
A tiny bit of instruction for the closing song, which is Adonai Li. It is taken from the last line, followed by the full final stanza of Adon Olam, which is found on page 126. we've reached the end of our service. If you've been watching the live stream, this is your last chance to post something in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. And for those of us here in the sanctuary, as we conclude our service, we turn to one another and say, Gemar Chatima Tova and Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, Gemar Chatima Tova.